Thanks for joining us for this episode of Coffee with Closers, where business leaders share insights on how to build businesses from the ground up and best practices for innovating in their industry.
Hey Chris, thanks for joining me. I appreciate the opportunity to interview you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Chris Lesner. I'm the founder and CEO of Project World Impact. I've got a wonderful wife, newborn baby, well, a 1-year-old baby. And yeah, live out in the suburbs of Chicago.
So explain a little bit about what is Project World Impact.
We've kind of got two parts to our company. One is a website where people find nonprofits by cause and location. So they can say, I wonder who's working with kids in Kenya, homeless people in Chicago, education in Chicago, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then we build those nonprofits we work with software. Mm-hmm. And then we have thousands of nonprofits that use our software to raise money. And that's half of what we do. The other half of what we do is marketing, digital marketing for for-profit companies. And it's everything from websites, apps, graphic design, search, social, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So where did this nonprofit side of the idea came about?
So a while back I got connected to the head of a nonprofit, and it was a very big nonprofit, and he kind of got me thinking about what would it look like to use my marketing skills to help causes around the world. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting concept because I hadn't really thought about how marketing could help people. It was just how marketing could help people make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't really focused on all the needs out there. And so when we started doing research into what do nonprofits need, whether they're really small, really big, all of them said that they need the same three things. And it was more money, more volunteers, and more visibility. Mm-hmm. And so when we started getting into the nonprofit space, we realized it's really expensive to get those three things. And we thought we could come in, change the industry a little bit, use some marketing skills, and help them raise a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And then that was about 6 years ago.
So obviously you've built this nonprofit focused business and so many different tools around it. But you had a prior business before you got into this. So talk to us a little bit about how you started on this venture and what you've learned from building this new business.
Yeah, well, the learnings have been crazy. Mm-hmm. I was in college as a sophomore and helped start a marketing company with a couple other people. Mm-hmm. And we had no money when we started. And when I was a senior in school, we had 60 people working for us. We had 3 offices in Indiana. It was growing. Mm-hmm. It was growing like crazy, and I was still in school trying to figure this out. And then that's when I got connected with this nonprofit leader. And I just thought, okay, in that 2-year span, we grew so fast. Mm-hmm. We were able to do marketing for so many big brands, everyone from like Chipotle to Hyatt to, you name it. We worked with a lot of mm-hmm. large players, Fortune 500 companies. And the transition into PWI, I forget the actual term that people have told me, but it's almost like first success could be a bad thing, mm-hmm. because I just thought it would be so easy to start PWI. Mm-hmm. We built the first company in 2 years to be pretty significant. And then I thought, okay, in my spreadsheets when I was starting PWI on Excel, it was one of those things where I was just like, oh, this is going to be, in 1 year, we're going to do this much, we're going to help this many people. And it just wasn't reality. Mm-hmm. We started and we realized, wow, it's different in a marketing service business. You're paying by the hour and you're mm-hmm. paying people by the hour. In a SaaS type or software type driven business, these products are really expensive. Mm-hmm. Where I thought a tool might cost $20,000 to build a tool that we could give to thousands of nonprofits, it was naive. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this is going to cost $500,000 or $1 million to build this one tool. And in the end, it could be very helpful, but it's mm-hmm. really expensive. And so we went through our first year of PWI. We initially, because I had some money from the first company and we didn't want to hire people, so we outsourced the project to a dev company in Chicago. And they went to build the site and told us, okay, we'll have it for this much money in 3 months for you. And it's just the core, almost like a directory type site. Mm-hmm. We got through the 3-month mark and they said, we need another 3 months. Okay, fine. All these complications came up, so we're 6 months into this project and they say, oh, we need another 3 months and we need more money. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, oh gosh. So now we're 9 months into this project and finally we're like, where is this? And then we find out that the company's potentially going bankrupt, their lead developers left, and we're out money that we had paid this company, and they were stringing us along, and it was a total mistake. And so we're like, oh no, we just lost a lot of money, and we have no product. So there was a waste of a year, and we had hired 40 people at that point just to get nonprofits to know about PWI. Somewhere between 20 and 40 people, depending, but we'd hired these people to get nonprofits for us. So we had the cost of, we were telling nonprofits, join our site, it's awesome, we're going to launch now. And then they get the email, oh, actually we need 3 more months and then we're going to launch, but thanks for joining. So we had all these customers that were pretty upset with us, right? Thousands of nonprofits by this point, and we didn't even have a product. And so then we go into year 2, and we're like, okay, we definitely can't afford to hire internally. We need to find a big team who can do this. You know, this is a big job. We have thousands of nonprofits now. After our first year, we had over 3,000 nonprofits commit to work with us. And so we were like, oh no, we got to hire another company. So we go and hire this other company, also based out of Chicago. And almost the exact same story.
Oh my.
It was going to be a 4-month project. They need another 4 months. At the 10-month mark, we end up parting ways. We have no product.
2 years lost.
2 years lost. So we end up paying out the rest of this contract with this company, saying, we'll just buy whatever you have. Give us the code you have, and we're going to have to build this internally. And they were telling us they had outsourced it. We had found out at this point when we were like, why is this going bad? They had said they had subcontracted it as well. So we were just buying code that we didn't even know what it did, didn't know what it looked like. So we ended up paying out the contract. We get the code, and it was like, you wouldn't even believe how bad it was. None of it was usable. And so then we have 2 years totally lost. And so to put it in perspective, the first company in 2 years, from the outside, I mean, it looked like we had made it. You know, I'm going to senior year of school. We have a big company. We have a lot of people. It's booming, 3 offices. I'm 2 years into this other venture. We've spent tons of money. We do have a lot of people, but it is
not making the traction.
It's going terrible.
Yeah.
And so that process was just a crazy process. So I think the difficulty in PWI has been so much more difficult, and we ended up, long story short, ended up bringing it all internally, realizing, hey, if we outsource this again, who knows where we'll be in a year from now. So we ended up hiring our CTO, hiring a CTO to run all of this, who's also a partner in the company. So it's been awesome.
That's a big lesson. So obviously, you know, like if it's a core product, you got to be extremely careful whether you're going to choose to outsource or if it makes real sense to actually do it in-house.
Yeah, I get to speak at a lot of different conferences now, and a lot of times people ask afterwards or come up to me and they say, what's the one piece of advice that you would give us? And I always say, never outsource your core competency. You know, and I was so young back then that I didn't even realize. I thought it was, we're going to save so much money. We could literally save millions of dollars doing this, and it's going to be done by professionals. And it turned out to not be the case, you know, and we since then have stuck to not outsourcing our core competency.
So what about now from a scaling standpoint? Obviously you've well over 3,000 active, right? So so what are some of the lessons you've learned in terms of building kind of the content machine, which I know you said you have hundreds and thousands of people coming to your site looking for nonprofit data, and then also there's a lot of donors coming. So what is kind of the scaling systems and tools that you've used to kind of get to where you are?
Yeah, it's we end up creating a lot of internal processes, building a lot of internal products, like I think a lot of companies have to do when there's not a perfect fit out there. But then the cool part is this year we opened up PWI for free to any nonprofit, which was not a thing of the past. We didn't do that historically. And so now we ended up giving over 100,000 nonprofits totally free access to PWI and 10 of our tools, which we're turning from much more of a directory and customer service in the back end focused to, we want to get out there and promote these nonprofits. We're going to treat it much more like an agency who's doing free marketing, you know, and with the amount of scale that we're getting on traffic, you can imagine how much money flows through the site, through the products. Last year, if you combine the revenues of all of our nonprofits, it's multiple billions of dollars of nonprofits, you know, so there's a lot of money that these nonprofits are dealing with, and on scale, now that we've opened it up to 100,000 nonprofits, that number is shooting through the roof, hopefully. So, it's an interesting process.
So obviously, you know, you're building, you know, you're scaling fast right now. You've hundreds and thousands of nonprofits joining, and you're also having to scale the organization as a whole. to make sure that you're supporting that growth. So what systems and processes do you have in place to make sure you have a very strong foundation and a good team to go that route?
Yeah, one of the things that we've had to work on is structuring our team so that people clearly know what departments they are responsible for, and then also measuring success. So it's really easy on the marketing side of our business to measure success with our clients. And for nonprofits, they're measuring, did we make money or not? You know, internally, we don't do or had not previously done a great job of measuring what does success look like. And so we've brought in a whole lot of measurements. So when we reach out to nonprofits, we're trying to call a certain amount of nonprofits that are on our site every hour. We're trying to get a hold of so many. We're trying to get this many emails from them. We're trying to get this money to start using these products, you know, and we're starting to measure this every day. And one of the things that we've started to realize is you start, even if you don't hit necessarily the goals off the bat, everyone gets behind what you're measuring. You know, if we weren't measuring it, there's a lot less excitement. Now that everything is public and everyone can see all the results, people get really behind it and really excited about, hey, we're getting this many nonprofits on board the site every day. You know, it's a big deal when we have dozens of nonprofits signing up every week from very minimal effort, people working hard but not much effort on our end. And we've taken a much more team development standpoint. So every month we go through it's different videos, but different talks that you might hear at major summits around the world, and from key leaders who talk about things like customer service, talk about things like marketing, talk about things like how do you structure a company that's growing like crazy, innovations in nonprofit, AI, all these different topics that people might touch on. We're trying to get our whole team on the same page to think this is where we're trying to head in 5 years. You know, and with all the nonprofits, where we're trying to head is pretty big, you know, and one of the core things that we're moving into is figuring out how do we treat customers. You know, it's easy when you're dealing with 10, 20, even up to 1,000 customers. That hadn't been too hard for us to treat them well. Now that we're talking about 100,000 plus customers, how do you treat them well? If they all call our office tomorrow at 9 a.m., we don't have that many people that can take those calls. Or if they all email in on the same day, how do we respond to 100,000 emails in a day? There's no way. True. You know, and so we're jumping into problems. It's good problems, we think. We'll find out. But it's things that we know we're going to have to deal with. And we're trying to approach them front on before launching any of these things. And so we've kind of got processes in place internally with hiring a lot more people. We're in a major trying to hire stage right now, even for customer service. Trying to service all the nonprofits because we have literally dozens of nonprofits might want to be talking to us at the same time. So we need all the team to support it.
And especially if you're going the freemium model where it started as free and then they have the option of paying, but they can choose not to even use the paid options, which means you're providing a free tool plus having to put a human capital to provide the support. So have you thought about using some sort of a guided tours inside the tools to make sure they can find the answers themselves so they don't have to necessarily bug your internal resources?
Yeah, we have guided tours, we've got FAQs, we've got all the things that you possibly could, or we're at least trying to build all the things you possibly could to keep people away from needing the human capital, because it gets expensive.
It does.
But at the same time, one of the things that we talk about as a team, and internally it's hard to convince people of this on our own team, is that if we end up helping a free nonprofit raise 20 grand, 30 grand, $100,000, which free nonprofits have raised well over $100,000 on our site just by joining and using the tools. And so we have to convince our team, think about the good that can do. You know, if we're paying somebody and they ended up spending, let's say, 20 hours helping somebody raise $100,000, that's a pretty, it's not a great financial investment in terms of return for us as a leadership team, but it's a really cool investment to think, hey, just 20 hours of our time, because we know this space so well, could help somebody raise that much money. That's significant.
Have you thought about actually getting compensated on the transactions? Because I know a lot of those credit card companies make a lot of the money on the back.
Yeah.
So was that ever a thought, or you just
It's always been a thought, and there's so many, if we were purely about making money, there's so many ways, even if we took 1% of what people are raising on the site, lower than any other competitor is at 5% is basically the lowest anyone else is. So if we said, okay, we'll take 1%, we would be crushing it even more than we are, you know, we'd be making a lot of money. And it's one of those things where it goes against what we're trying to do. If, let's say, a credit card company is willing to drop their processing rates or give us a kickback like like an affiliate model or something like that, we would rather go to the nonprofit and say, hey, we got your rates lowered. We could keep this percent, but we're just going to give it to you. So all of that percent, we then will turn into basically a product that says, okay, you're going to save this much and we'll kick it back to you. And 100% of it goes back to these nonprofits. So we actually have a tool right now where we partner with 1,800 retailers that are basically trying to compete with Amazon Smile. So it's things, places like Walmart, GameStop, Hotels.com, all these places where we have agreements with them where they'll give up to 25% of people's online purchases to us, which is great. But we then give all up to the 25% to the nonprofit. So all of that money raised, people are raising $100 a year just from the normal shopping. Literally, it doesn't cost the user anything. It's a free way people can support nonprofits, and so it's
almost matching dollars too.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
A lot of these corporations are already giving money to their causes. They have their CSR. They have to give away so much money, and so it's if they don't care what organizations it's going to. So when we end up funneling all this money to nonprofits, they're like, wow, this didn't cost us anything. And people can support us without spending their own money. I mean, that's the best of both worlds. They're getting to give away other people's money, and so we're always looking for things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very excited to hear about the mission of the company, and then that you're not really, yes, you're making money, but then that's not the primary focus. You're trying to fulfill the need in that marketplace. So talk to me about, from an entrepreneurial side, obviously you've built one company and you're doing this. What are some of the lessons as an entrepreneur that you're doing, like time management, productivity, building up a team and being that leader? Talk to me about some of those things and how are you investing into yourself to grow, and then what are some of the lessons you're learning there on the personal level?
I think everyone on our team would unanimously say I am the worst manager in our company. I think everyone would agree with that. And if they don't, I'd be surprised. But I am not a great people manager. I still have so much to learn. But the things that I think I do excel at is I have a high capacity to want to learn. So even I do a lot of reading. I try and read at least a book every single week. And so I'm on audiobook constantly when I'm in the car, driving to meetings, whatever, I'm listening to audiobooks. And then I try to take it a step further where I reach out to the authors after I read them and try and connect with these authors, learn from them. The amount of crazy connections of people who have responded to me or set me up with different people has been unbelievable. So that is really cool, but also part of the journey. Everyone always told me when I started PWI, even though I was bringing in a lot of money, everyone said, you will need 3 times more than what you think. And whatever you think is 3 times more, double it. And I said, you people are crazy. Like, look at, the first company was so easy, and it's just, the difference between a service business and a software business and capital needed is insane.
It is.
And what we started to realize is the funding needed was just so much more than we thought. Our timelines were so unrealistic. When we thought, hey, we're gonna have these, like the 20 products we have now, 6 years into the company, legitimately, I probably thought we would have those in the first 3 months of our existence. And I wouldn't say I was dumb either. I was just inexperienced and didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought it would be so much faster. And so the other things is, finding great mentors, has been huge for me, in actually giving me guidance. There's so many people. I remember early on we were trying to figure out, do we sell nonprofits? We have all these nonprofits. Do we sell them? Do we not sell them on services? What do we do? How do we structure a sales team? I've never had to structure a sales team. Everything just kind of fell into place. And so I remember I set up two phone calls with salespeople I knew. One was the ex-chief marketing officer of Facebook, and one was the ex-chief sales officer at Apple. Yeah, when Apple hires a salesperson, let's say for their education department, which is a huge revenue generator, Apple for education is very large. They're not looking for people with sales experience. Sales experience is a plus, but they don't care if they have sales experience. They want people who used to be the customer. So they're looking for past and ex-teachers to now hop into a sales role because they know what it was like to be in the classroom. So they can talk better to the customer, they can talk better to experiences, they know what the product needs to develop into. A lot of their developers they hire the same way, where it's, we want you to have experience using a product that's a competitor of ours. So when we actually get into talking to nonprofits, selling nonprofits anything, we even put job descriptions out saying, looking for executive directors of nonprofits. People who have run nonprofits because they know the pain of what it's like to run a nonprofit. They know how behind technology-wise they are. They know what people are dealing with mentally. To then come in and say, okay, now be our salesperson. This is not a hard sell. If you sell 50 nonprofits to get on for free or 50 paid, you are equally as successful. We're not judging our team based on revenue necessarily. We're judging them based on quantity of nonprofits we can connect with, which also takes away the pressure of we need to raise money. We have other automated campaigns that can go out to free nonprofits to then monetize them into, okay, we know X% of nonprofits that sign up for free might pay us for stuff, and we have a way to monetize them. But for us, it's just as great if we're helping the people. And so, the idea of mentorship, having advice like that, my first thought was just find people who have been in sales their whole life, and at one point, one of the lessons learned before I had that call was we hired a head of sales and 6 salespeople. And over the course of 6 months, they brought in $0 in revenue. So we were paying them, and it was some commission based, but it was also like they had to live for 6 months, so we had to pay them. But in 6 months, 7 people on a team sold $0 for us. So it's like, wow, why did that not work? And so when we get advice like that, it's like, wow, that's never would have thought of that, and there's literally dozens of mentors in different areas of my life, even personally, that have helped me kind of figure out how do you structure life, how do you manage time, how do you make sure that your family is a priority, your faith is a priority, how do you get all these things in order that I'm still trying to learn.
Yeah. Are there other lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, there are. There's almost countless lessons. I think that it's really cool. One of the things I think is coolest about PWI is that it's really cool when you have a vision for where you want to go, and then you ask other people along the way who are on our team, where do you see it becoming? What do you think we should do next? Out of those 20 products, probably 5 were my idea. 15 were the ideas of people on our team. So somebody, like a good example is we have a product that's launching, which is basically like a job finder. It's like Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, all these different sites where you can look for jobs. But we have all this traffic who's looking for nonprofits. Maybe they're interested in jobs. And we'll just make it free for nonprofits to post jobs, free for people to apply to them, whatever. The concept happened because as a graphic designer, one of our graphic designers who was designing products was like, boy, I wish I could travel the world working for nonprofits now that I'm getting to work with them. And then she came up with the idea of, well, what if there was a job portion on our site where I could just see, hey, could I get a graphic design job in name a place, Nigeria or in Canada or India or wherever it ends up being. And then it was like, hey, that has some merit. We have a big audience. We have all these nonprofits, and we do hear that they need good people who like nonprofits, and it's hard to find people. Why not? Worst case scenario, we put money into a product that doesn't work. But best case scenario is we help people find fulfilling jobs and things that they care about, and more people are helped along the way. And in the end, if a product fails for us, because we know a bunch of products are going to fail, and I think that's another lesson learned is products don't always work. We've already shut down multiple products when they don't work. But when they either way, when you actually test out these products, it's cool to just think this is the potential this could have if it works. And when we actually play that out in terms of numbers to think how many people could be impacted by our decision here in this office with our team, it's like, wow, we need to think through these well. So yeah, empowering people is really, really fun just to see people develop, and even the vision for where we're heading as a company. I think there's definitely the core leadership team of people who we've kind of all been there for 2 years. We're all kind of running our own departments, and we're starting to hire in these departments too. And it's like, okay, what does that look like? Who do we want to hire? How many people do we need to hire? How do we structure this? What's it going to be like every time you add a new person? Changes office dynamic. Yeah, it's a fun ride.
I can talk to you for hours and hours, and obviously you have a lot of wealth of wisdom that you learn over the years. Are there any productivity hacks that you hold dear to, as far as things that you do to make sure you're staying productive and getting things done?
Yeah, It's a good question. And that's something I've been thinking about a ton. I literally messaged my business partner about this yesterday, even, where we'll see if this works. But I basically made a schedule for myself, just drawn out schedule with nothing on it. And I'm putting down the things that I want to do every hour, and I'm going to try and stick to it as much as possible. There's all these things that you hear people like
Pomodori concept is one of those.
You hear a lot of those. And then you also have people like Mark Cuban, who it's like he goes to sleep in his athletic clothes, so he works out in the morning. Or you have other people who it's like Steve Jobs only had the same clothes in his closet, so he never had to think about what to wear. Things like
Mark
that.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg does the same thing. I mean, it's like there's all these other hacks that
I don't know about that 5 minutes are going to make me more productive.
Exactly. So I'm not going that far, but I do think even just the discipline, and my wife and I were talking about like laying all of it out. What would that look like for us, you know, in her life and my life? How can we be more intentional with our time, you know? Because otherwise, there are so many fires that come up in a given day just running a company. Like, you know, there's so many things that could take away
the urgent
time
versus the important. Yeah.
Right. How do you determine that? So yeah, I think the other productivity hacks, I mean, just revolve around the number of computers or tablets that I might have on me at a given time. I mean, it's just like being able to multitask a lot, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy like I hear some of these other people able to do.
I know. Any last parting wisdom?
You know, I think people should learn more about nonprofits, just in general. It's not necessarily wisdom, but in America, nonprofits make up a significant portion of the GDP, as well as every year there are over 130 million Americans who look for nonprofits. So when you think about this,
close to almost 70-80% of the population.
It is a lot of people, and so when you get into this, you realize, wow, this is a big space. But it's a space because it's a big space, people get taken advantage of like crazy, or nonprofits potentially might be run poorly. There's so many nonprofits. There's over 1 million nonprofits registered in America. So that means basically 1 out of every 300 some people is starting a nonprofit. So that's a pretty big percentage of people starting nonprofits when you think about it. And people should just educate themselves to know what's going on around the world, you know, just to be better people, better humans, better just individuals. To educate yourself with what's going on around the world. There's a lot of Americans interested in what's going on in the world looking for nonprofits. I know some are just focused on America, and that's great too. But there is a lot of need out there. We're so blessed, especially like me and you being in Chicago. This is such a beautiful area. We don't have many concerns day to day that most of the world has. And I think it's almost a responsibility that people have to educate themselves on it and to figure out how do they get involved. You know, not everyone's going to do what we're doing, but it'd be great if more people did build stuff and give it away for free to nonprofits. When we hear about stuff like that people might say like, oh man, they're trying to build PWI or do something similar. It's like, awesome. There's way more nonprofits than we can connect with, you know, and if they can pay for the customer service to help those nonprofits, awesome. It saves us money, you know? So yeah, just getting involved with nonprofits would be it's not wisdom, but advice.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think speaking from experience too, I think we do a lot of team building and we call it, the outings. But the most rewarding outings we have ever had is something where we went to serve community, like, Soup Kitchen or like some of those, missions that has like a good cause behind it, right? And then we walked away feeling much more blessed and count our blessings one more time. And I think that's a good wisdom there.
Right.
Yeah, appreciate you joining me.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.